The 2013-14 San Antonio Spurs were one of the most iconic championship teams of the 2010s.
Their roster was chock full of future Hall of Famers who gathered together to win one last ring near the ends of their incredible careers. By the time those Spurs avenged their bitter 2013 loss against Miami by torching the Heat in the finals, they were heralded as a paragon of roster construction. Between 1999 and 2007, the Spurs won 4 titles.
But while the team's nucleus of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili was still together, they hadn't won a ring in 7 long years. That changed in 2014 thanks in part to the Spurs' Big Three, and also to an incredible supporting cast that included a set of great international talent, an up-and-coming superstar, and well, who could forget the Red Mamba himself, Matt Bonner.
Driving to the hole, the floater, yeah! Oh my goodness!
But this team was about more than just talent. The 2013-14 Spurs will be remembered for their incredible teamwork and their spectacular ball movement sequences. Whereas the old school Spurs would just dump the ball down to the low post and let the Twin Towers' David Robinson and Tim Duncan dominate from there, this team had evolved.
They spread the floor and created great looks
all over the place thanks to constant movement and generous passing.
A terrific ball movement, ending with a three-pointer, and Mills pumps his fist.
The Spurs were one of the least selfish teams in recent memory, giving up good shots to get great shots. And the combination of constant ball movement and great shot making helped them threaten opponents from all over the court. That season, the Spurs led the league by passing the ball more than 27,000 times, or 3.6 times per possession. The ball never stopped, and opponents were left chasing it around the scoring area as San Antonio moved it at breakneck speed, hunting for juicy looks in smart places.
As a result,
Greg Popovich's offense ranked first in the league in assists, first in the league in three-point shooting efficiency, and fourth in the league in two-point shooting efficiency. They decorated the court with great players, and none of them ever settled for bad shots. Most of this team's possessions ended with a great player taking a great shot.
It's good! Oh, mama! Danny Green said tired? What are you talking about?
But let's dive a little deeper to see which Spurs did their work in which areas of the floor, including the playoffs, and see how all of that translated to a title.
It should come as no surprise that this team's leading scorer inside was Tim Duncan, who averaged nearly 10 points per game in the paint. Even though he turned 38 years old during the 2014 playoffs, old man Riverwalk could still get it done against much younger defenders near the bucket. Whether he was posting up, rolling to the rim, or putting back his teammates' misses, Duncan provided his team with reliable interior scoring all year long. And that was particularly huge in one of their biggest games of the year, on the road in Game 6 of the Western Finals in OKC. The Spurs and Thunder were going to overtime in a hostile environment. The court was packed with future Hall of Famers, but one of them put his team on his shoulders and went out and won the game.
Duncan now has a mismatch with Jackson and gets the roll with 19 seconds to play. San Antonio by 3.
There's a reason they call Duncan the greatest power forward of all time. His buckets were rarely highlight fodder, especially this late in his career, but the Spurs rode his fundamentals to the Larry O'Brien for a 5th time. Let's move out to the mid-range. Later in his career, Kawhi Leonard would move on from the Spurs and become among the NBA's most dangerous mid-range operatives, and he would preview that mid-range mastery in a Finals MVP winning performance against the Heat.
The fans of San Antonio know how great you are, and now the whole world does.
But in 2013-14, no Spurs scored more here than the team's legendary playmaker, Tony Parker. Parker was one of the savviest point guards in the league for years, but early in his career he struggled to hit his jump shots. By 2014, that was no longer a problem, and Parker's elite mid-range arsenal gave this team a key player who could create a bucket without an assist. A vast majority of Parker's buckets in this area came off of the bounce, and his ability to dribble into pull-ups and floaters off of ball screens was one of this title squad's most reliable half-court weapons. Folks, This is one of the most effective and most beautiful teardrops in NBA history.
Parker, he's deadly, an assassin with that shot.
Parker could score near the baselines, but he did most of his mid-range damage up here, around the elbows and the free throw line. Whether it was pull-ups or shots coming over screens, Parker used his jumper to punish defenders who couldn't manage to stay near him. Parker turned 32 years old during the 2014 championship run, but he was still one of the quickest, craftiest, and most skilled playmakers in pro basketball. Moving beyond the arc, the Spurs came equipped with a strong group of catch-and-shoot threats, and many of the team's epic ball movement sequences were punctuated by a three-point dagger from one of this roster's many sharpshooters.
Earlier in the 2000s, Bruce Bowen and the Spurs helped make the corner three famous
by recognizing its utility as both a spacing weapon and as a hyper-efficient perimeter scoring choice. Corner threes are the most assist-dependent shot on the floor. Over 95% of them are assisted by a teammate, so of course these Spurs were great at creating them. As a team, the 2013-14 Spurs made over 41% of their 702 corner threes. By the end of the year, they ranked second in total corner threes made and also second in corner three-point percentage too. Greg Popovich loved to stash shooters in these areas to spread out the defense and open up the center of the floor for players like Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili. Anytime a defense tried to cheat off of the Spurs' corner shooters, they would pay. Both Tony Parker and Boris Diaw assisted on over 50 corner threes that season. The most common recipient during the 2013-14 title run?
Danny Green,
who has made a career by blending excellent wing defense with elite catch-and-shoot scoring. Green's 59 corner threes that year narrowly edged out Patty Mills' 55 for most on the team. And Green was at his best in the postseason when he sank exactly half of his 26 corner three attempts. Danny Green's impact did not stop in the corners though. He was also the Spurs' most prolific and most efficient scorer along the wings too. Even though Manu Ginobili attempted 12 more shots in these areas during the season, Green ended up with 21 more buckets here because he converted a ridiculous 47.2% of his tries. How good is that? Out of 110 players that attempted at least 100 shots in these wing zones that year, Green had by far the best conversion rate, edging out players like Stephen Curry and Kyle Korver. But again, one reason Green's numbers are so high is because his shot quality was elite. His teammates broke down defenses, causing Green's defender to help. From there, it's easy money. Up at the top of the arc, we find another vital element to the Spurs championship run, as Patty Mills was the leading scorer. Mills provided this Spurs team with an electric spark off the bench. At 25, he was one of the younger players in the rotation, but the youthful Australian guard could flat out shoot it, especially in this area, where he made over 41% of his 117 shots in that title run. Mills was a key member of the Spurs' second unit, which famously sported contributors from all over the planet and was dubbed the Foreign Legion. Like Danny Green, R.C. Buford and the Spurs front office plucked Mills out of relative obscurity and helped turn him into one of the league's best three-point specialists.
Mills lines up another three. Oh, this man can shoot.
Overall, the 2013-14 Spurs will be remembered as one of the decade's most complete champions.
Their roster was loaded with unselfish players from all over the world. They played great basketball on both ends of the court, and in the summer of 2014, they upended LeBron James and the Heat to win an historic
5th title.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.